Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Books by Adrian. This is Livestream Sunday, and today's episode is all about musical composition and how it helps us to tell stories. And with me today, my very special guest, Adrian Asaf Guadalupe. Welcome, my brother. How are you?
What's up, buddy? Thanks for having me. How
Good to,
fun.
it's
Look
good
at
to have you,
this.
man. We had your brother on here a couple of weeks ago,
Yes.
and now yourself. I just have to find things for the next two brothers to come on and talk about now.
Exactly. You got a whole crew of uh, variously talented individuals just chomping at the bit to chat with you. So
And
lucky
all
you.
of us named Adrian too. So let's go, taking over the world one Adrian at a time.
That's right.
All right,
Keep cranking them out.
brother. Yeah, what? Yeah, you did. Why don't you go ahead and tell us all where you are, where you're from, what do you do? Introduce yourself to everybody.
Sure. Well, my name is Adrian. I am one of four Adrians. I have three younger brothers. We're all Adrian. My father's name is Adrian. My grandfather's name is Adrian. My son's name is Adrian. My nephew's name is Adrian. So we have a little empire that we are mobilizing as we speak. I live in Buffalo, New York. I
Mobilizing.
exactly. My headquarters are in Buffalo, New York. I I've been a musician all my life. My dad's a musician, and it rubbed off on me. So I've studied music all my life. I graduated here from UB, University at Buffalo, studying music and philosophy, and I've been working here in the area. Most recently, with a very very talented singer songwriter called Roy Roy Vander Vest-Tyson. Roy Vander Vest-Tyson. Look him up. He's dope. And yeah, so I like to keep busy. I
Yeah,
like to
we're gonna
play.
need
I
to
like to
spell
write.
that out. Like,
I'll have to text him because I don't know how to spell it. um, yeah, so I like to stay busy. I come from a really creative family. We like to do projects together. I've known Adrian here from Books by Adrian. Very, very long time, decades. I think we met in first grade, and he's been part of our
second.
creative shenanigans here and there. So it's fun to do it again, buddy.
Yeah, man. It's been, upwards of 2 decades we've been friends. Three, actually, because I was like almost three. Yeah, because I was 6 or 7 when we met.
Well,
So,
don't tell anybody
and I'm
how old we are.
36 now. It's too
Don't
late.
don't give away
I
the
already did.
age, bro. It's the internet we're talking about here.
We're, hey, it's they can figure it out. They can do math. So, everybody, thank you so much for being here. We already have people coming into the chat. Kent, welcome. I hope you bring your crazy posse along with you. We are going to have a good time today. If you are back, don't forget to leave a like on the video down below. It really helps the channel grow, helps the video reach more people. And if this is your first time with us, don't even think about it, man. Hit subscribe because we do dope stuff here. That's how we roll. Today will be Exhibit A, and then you can go backwards through the playlist and see how season 2 of Livestream Sunday is just slapping. Now, today is really, really special because I had a flash fiction contest going on during April, which ended with quite a few entries. And the one that I selected, I recorded myself reading it, like a little audiobook rendition of it. And I then sent that story to Adrian here, and we have been brainstorming today's episode for some time. He is going to compose a score to this flash fiction piece, and we are going to learn from him how to tell stories through music. First thing I want to do is announce the winner, since no one knows. Even I emailed the winner like 20 minutes ago. Like, oh, by the way, you won. You should probably be there.
She'll see the video.
So if she doesn't show, I apologize. But here we go. I would just go let's go ahead and announce the winner. Here we go. So I'm not sure if it's Stephanie Backus or Stephanie Bacchus.
Good job,
For the purposes of
Stephanie.
today's show, I'm going to go with Bacchus. Good job, Stephanie. Great little story that we have here. I asked you guys for emotional stories, and boy, did you deliver. Here we go. We're going to talk about the story together first, Adrian. It's so weird calling you Adrian because I normally don't call you that. Okay, so how would you like to? Should I play the story for everybody first, and then we go from there, or should we discover it together as you're playing music? Like, what? How do you think we should go about this?
Oh, that's a good question.
I didn't actually consider this before this moment.
Well, I'll be talking about sort of my process, I guess, or a process for storytelling through music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Part of what that process is going to entail is reacting emotionally to the content of the story. So I don't know what would be more valuable. The thing about music, right?
You answered my question. You answered, yeah.
Music has a very direct access to a very core part of our being, right? Music has a very uninhibited direct access to our emotional core, right?
Mm-hmm.
Part of scoring or writing to a story is, in a sense, telling you how you should feel about this content at this specific time is what the music is telling you, in a sense. You know, when you have an emotional experience to music, that's what you're having. When you're watching a movie and the score is I mean, you hardly notice it sometimes, but I mean, in those moments, that's what's really carrying the emotional weight. So it could be fun for the first time that they hear the story to be with the music going on. But that would be sort of my emotional experience to this story, which is cool. If the first time you want to experience a story is experience it as I experienced it emotionally, as I shared through music, or do you want to have them experience the story by itself, have their own emotional experience, and then compare how that jives with how I experienced it or how they experienced the music with the story? Maybe I made some bad choices. Maybe it's not supposed to feel this way. Maybe they don't like what I've done and they want to tell me about it. Maybe they should form their own opinions about the story first. So we have some learned criticism, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
That's interesting. So perhaps it should, maybe we can have our cake and eat it too. Maybe I play the reading of the story on its own for everyone to have their emotional reaction. Then we play it a second time after we talk about it a little bit. We play it a second time where you are playing it uninterrupted as you are experiencing the story. And then we can break it down and talk about it, and you can explain what you've done.
Sure. Why I made the choices I made in the moment or beforehand or whatever. Yeah, that sounds fun.
Okay.
Let's do that.
All right. Let's do that. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and throw up the story here. This, again, is Goodbye by Stephanie Backus, or Bacchus. She'll correct me eventually. Here we go.
Miss Louise, it's time. I looked up from my book at my mother's nurse. Thanks, Genevieve. I want to thank you for your support. You mean so much to her. Genevieve nodded at me, and I walked into the room. Dust danced in the air as sunbeams shone through my mother's window. Oh, Mom, I'm not ready, I whispered as I made my way to her bed. I sat down and opened the book to read to her. It was the memoir she wrote after she got sick, so her memories could live on. When I was 7, I started school. I hated that place, I started to read. I was a freckled redhead. My mama did my hair in 2 braids every day. The boys would grab the braids in class. They would try to count my freckles out loud, but they must have been pretty dumb because no one could count that many freckles. I was the only girl in my class, which included 7, 8, and 9-year-olds. I remember the first time my teacher told me to read in front of class. I was terrified. I didn't want to speak in front of class, but back then, if you were a girl and you were in school, you were learning to be a teacher or a mom. And I was too much of a tomboy for the teachers to think I was ever getting married or having kids. By 3rd grade, I was helping the teacher pass out papers and clean the blackboard. She obviously thought I was going to teach. So imagine my former teacher's surprise when she was dying 30 years later and found me, still freckled and still a redhead, as her nurse. As she laid in her hospital bed, I showed her pictures of you, and she said she was sorry for her assumptions. A tear rolled down my cheek as I read the passage. She had never really talked about the early days of her life. Once her parents divorced, her mother moved her to the city. That's where she met my father. He died when I was 14. I didn't think I would survive his death. I really don't think I'll survive her death either. Mom opened her eyes and looked at me. She usually looked through me these days. She almost never remembers who I am, but this time I could tell she knew exactly who was sitting with her. I touched her hand. It was so soft, just like when I was a little girl. She squeezed lightly, and I leaned down and put my cheek on her hand. Tears dropped on her blanket. Mom, what am I going to do without you? How am I going to walk down the aisle without you? How am I going to have kids without you to be there for them? How am I going to teach them about you? I looked up at the monitors next to her bed. It wouldn't be long now. I love you so much, Mom. I don't know how I'm going to go on without you, but I know Dad is waiting for you. I know he's ready to see you again. When you're ready to go, it's okay. I don't want you to be in pain anymore. I felt her chest rise and fall as I leaned over to hug her one last time. An alarm sounded. Genevieve turned off the machine. Mom was gone. I dropped her memoir in grief, and a piece of paper fell out. I had flipped through the pages of this book 200 times. I don't know how I didn't see it before. I opened it. Louise, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I want you to know that I love you. In a few months, you'll think I don't recognize you, and I may not, but I will always remember the 7-year-old version of you, because you are just like me. I put your hair in the same pigtail braids my mom did because you allowed me to relive my youth a little bit. You're going to be okay. I will always be here for you, whispering in your ear as you walk down the aisle to marry the man of your dreams, telling you to push harder when you're having your kids, and I know you'll read them this book to tell them all about me. I'll always be here. Until we meet again, Mom. As I read the note, I could feel her spirit in the room. The sun shone a bit brighter. The smell of her perfume washed over me. She was already by my side, telling me that I would be okay.
Lovely.
Isn't that nice? I thought
It's a
that
lovely
was a
story.
beautiful little story.
It is a lovely story.
So, yeah. And, maybe after I put up the finished video with your music and everything, um, maybe I should have her on to talk about it a little bit
Yeah, that'd be cool.
because I'm interested.
Yeah, I'm interested too. What uh, I really liked how you got the crux of the emotional ride you were going to go on right from the beginning of the story, right? It sort of presents itself to you.
Mm-hmm.
It takes you on a bit of a detour to like drill into the relationship and the life of the mother. But this is a quintessential human moment, right? It's one of the most it's number one, death is waiting for all of us, right? Number one. But besides that, we're going to have these moments with our loved ones where it's their time, right? This is something that's universal, and there's no one that doesn't know what that's like or isn't going to know what that's like.
Yeah.
So the
If you
emotional
don't know what
moment,
it's like yet, you fear it. Like
you fear it.
you dread that day.
Exactly. And so the emotional moment is very clear from the beginning. Like, this is what we're exploring in this story, and we go on a ride with it. You know what I mean? So it, as a as an artist looking to interact with this particular piece of art, as a musician who's trying to find the emotional core of the story we're telling, this particular story does a great job of laying it in front of you from the get-go in a really nice way,
Yeah, I felt the same when reading it for the first time. And that's why I chose it. It's a very good example of flash fiction. This very short story where it's basically a scene. You're just looking at one scene amongst a character's vast story, and you have to tell a complete arc in very few words. So everything matters, everything counts, when it's done well, every line is important because you don't have a lot of time to like waste on. And then when you still have room for prose and this sort of like this emotional angle that she plays with, to do that again in so few words is very challenging. So that's why I chose this story. I thought it was a really good example of both good flash fiction and also a very just emotional moment,
A worthy winner. For sure.
So would you like to now play a piece of accompanying music to this story, and we can see how this affects the emotional ride that we're on?
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that, and then
You ready?
We'll talk about how. Yeah. I'll talk about the choices I'm making, what I'm reacting to, and I got things to talk about. Hit me.
All right, let's do it.
Miss Louise, it's time. I looked up from my book at my mother's nurse. Thanks, Genevieve. I want to thank you for your support. You mean so much to her. Genevieve nodded at me, and I walked into the room. Dust danced in the air as sunbeams shone through my mother's window. Oh, Mom, I'm not ready, I whispered as I made my way to her bed. I sat down and opened the book to read to her. It was the memoir she wrote after she got sick, so her memories could live on. When I was 7, I started school. I hated that place, I started to read. I was a freckled redhead. My mama did my hair in 2 braids every day. The boys would grab the braids in class. They would try to count my freckles out loud, but they must have been pretty dumb because no one could count that many freckles. I was the only girl in my class, which included 7, 8, and 9-year-olds. I remember the first time my teacher told me to read in front of class. I was terrified. I didn't want to speak in front of class, but back then, if you were a girl and you were in school, you were learning to be a teacher or a mom. And I was too much of a tomboy for the teachers to think I was ever getting married or having kids. By 3rd grade, I was helping the teacher pass out papers and clean the blackboard. She obviously thought I was going to teach. So imagine my former teacher's surprise when she was dying 30 years later and found me, still freckled and still a redhead, as her nurse. As she laid in her hospital bed, I showed her pictures of you, and she said she was sorry for her assumptions. A tear rolled down my cheek as I read the passage. She had never really talked about the early days of her life. Once her parents divorced, her mother moved her to the city. That's where she met my father. He died when I was 14. I didn't think I would survive his death. I really don't think I'll survive her death either. Mom opened her eyes and looked at me. She usually looked through me these days. She almost never remembers who I am, but this time I could tell she knew exactly who was sitting with her. I touched her hand. It was so soft, just like when I was a little girl. She squeezed lightly, and I leaned down and put my cheek on her hand. Tears dropped on her blanket. Mom, what am I going to do without you? How am I going to walk down the aisle without you? How am I going to have kids without you to be there for them? How am I going to teach them about you? I looked up at the monitors next to her bed. It wouldn't be long now. I love you so much, Mom. I don't know how I'm going to go on without you, but I know Dad is waiting for you. I know he's ready to see you again. When you're ready to go, it's okay. I don't want you to be in pain anymore. I felt her chest rise and fall as I leaned over to hug her one last time. An alarm sounded. Genevieve turned off the machine. Mom was gone. I dropped her memoir in grief, and a piece of paper fell out. I had flipped through the pages of this book 200 times. I don't know how I didn't see it before. I opened it. Louise, if you're reading this, I'm probably gone. I want you to know that I love you. In a few months, you'll think I don't recognize you, and I may not, but I will always remember the 7-year-old version of you, because you are just like me. I put your hair in the same pigtail braids my mom did because you allowed me to relive my youth a little bit. You're going to be okay. I will always be here for you, whispering in your ear as you walk down the aisle to marry the man of your dreams, telling you to push harder when you're having your kids. And I know you'll read them this book to tell them all about me. I'll always be here. Until we meet again, Mom. As I read the note, I could feel her spirit in the room. The sun shone a bit brighter. The smell of her perfume washed over me. She was already by my side, telling me that I would be okay.
Sorry, I had us muted. That
And there
was
you have it.
that was beautiful. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk about what you did there, because there was definitely like a running motif that you had going, but you also like took these little paths off to the side and coming back. Like, can you talk a little bit about your process here reading the story?
Absolutely. So I'm reading the story. The emotional moment presents itself very clearly, very early in the story. And, it's incredibly consistent through the story, right? We know where we're at. The somberness of the moment is over us. It's over the situation. It's over the scene. And like we were saying before, this is a universal human experience that we either all have or all will experience. The passing of a loved one, and there's incredible sorrow, right? Of course. But there's also this this connection to the person, even though they're gone. I don't know, in a way that the bond feels all the more real for some reason. There's a familiarity. There's a sacredness to the moment that is transcendent and familiar. So this idea of transcendence and familiarity is part of the emotion that's dripping off the scene, right? I'm not looking at necessarily the specifics, right? Mom, daughter, disease, book, right? That's not it. All of these details that the artist, that the writer has provided are painting a picture for us, right? They're painting what we take in our mind is a picture, right? Not these words. And this picture creates this feeling in us, right? We react to it. So I'm drilling into that reaction, right? That feeling, which you can abstract from the details of the scene, but I'm really digging in there. So I've got this. I've narrowed down this transcendent familiarity and sorrow, right? So even though we're starting the scene wrong, not wrong, but sad, I guess, right? I'm sticking with the major. I'm not going with the minor right off the bat.
Because that's baseline.
This is baseline.
Like, this is where we're starting.
Yeah, this is baseline. And it seems like this relationship is, in the story, was a good one, right? Like the struggle is coming to an end here for both of them. There's all this love there, you know. The relationship, the baseline of this relationship is major, right? It's not that kind of relationship. That's not mom. That's mom, right? So that's the center. Even though we're passing through the worst of the worst, you know, mom is mom. So that's our baseline. That's my baseline. So
that's so beautiful, man. You find like the emotional core of the character of mom, and you put that into a sound. Like
right.
That's beautiful, dude. Like you can identify mom in the sound. That's oh man.
Yeah, and you know, musicians, just like writers, we have a certain like set of materials in front of us that we have, right? You have, you know, however many words we have in the English language, right? And the ones you make up, because y'all like to make that stuff up.
Yeah.
It's point being that there's a finite set of resources to tinker with. It's the same in music. I've got 12 notes. That's all I've got. That's all we all got. We all get 12 notes. And there's a whole grammar, obviously, a whole language that's developed over the millennia of how to arrange these building blocks into units of meaning, right? In English, it's, you know, propositional content. In music, it's emotional content. I don't know how else to put it, right? For some reason, sounds carry emotional content. I don't know what that means for your metaphysics, but that's just the truth of it, right? That means something different than that, period. I don't care what you think about it, right? So
True,
here's
true.
here's mom. So there's mom. I mean, mom is mom, you know?
Yeah.
For those of us who this is mom for, I understand. For some people, that's mom. I'm sorry for you, you know? But this is my mom, you know? Yeah. So there's our baseline. So I'm building you caught on to a central theme, a central motif, and I'm building it around outlining this. There's the major chord. So the motif I'm centering on and returning to, that's the familiarity. That's what I'm coming back to. And I'm coming back to mom, right? That's the familiar, transcendent aspect. It's a really airy, reverby piano, right? Lots of air, lots of space, not real cluttered. That's the theme. That's it. That's mom. Mom is a major sound, but the specifics of our relationship are right? This playful childness. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's everything else that's happening in this scene all of the emotion that's happening here it's because of mom, right? It's because of what's happening to mom, what mom and I are going through, what, you know, so, you know, that's where home is, and everything happens around there.
And you know, we do that in writing as well, in our stories, where, you know, our characters have to sort of have a home base. You know what I mean? Whether it's home or somewhere else, that they, a place that they come back to where they feel safe, and therefore the audience can relax after, you know, whatever adventure we just had, or dangerous situation we were just at. You know, it's this thing where, like, you go out and crazy stuff happens, but you can always come back home, and you can always, like, bring it back down to baseline. Like
Exactly.
we were saying, you know, this,
Exactly.
the central kind of vibe motif that we build from.
And storytelling, you know, just a little to sidetrack on transcendence and storytelling, because this is your fault. That storytelling is a transcendent thing. I'm not even sure. I was gonna say something like narrative and meaning in music is a, you know, at least propositional content or details of narrative in music are almost foreign to, like, strictly music, right? So the meaning that we get, the narrative meaning, it's almost like we're borrowing it from language, from spoken language, right?
Okay.
I think that's one of the things that's really powerful about the pairing of films, of music with film scores in general, is that pairing, that the emotional drive and the emotional content that you're feeling and getting overwhelmed by is focused on a specific scenario, such that now, you know, when you think aliens, you think E.T. music. You hear John Williams when you think Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, Star Wars doesn't mean Star Wars until somebody tells you it means Star Wars. But the experience is so, when it's all together, they're almost inseparable. They are inseparable now at this point, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, when I hear that Superman John Williams score, you know, like, I'm instantly transported back to my childhood, and my dad putting that movie on for me, and you know, just like that sound is Superman. Whenever I think Superman, that's his sound. You know what I mean? Even with the new iterations and Henry Cavill and everything, that's that sound by John Williams. That horn, dude, that's Superman. You know?
And you know, now that you mention all that. Sound, because we're talking about music and storytelling and emotional content and meaning in sound, and we're thinking, when we say sound, we're thinking music, but it's the same for our language, right? We're just making sounds with our mouths. Sure. And what we mean to say here, we could say using different sounds, you know, different languages. I could say it in Spanish, then we can talk in different languages, different sounds. But why is the emotional experience we're having in this story so universal, such that it doesn't matter what language we speak? If we get this content across, we know what the other person is feeling, right? This is a universal thing. So not even spoken language is the words. Yeah. Language itself, words themselves are not even the bottom, the foundation of the experience we're having, right? We're using the words and the music to describe something about ourselves that's happening inside of us, something that is more real than the words we're using, more real than the sounds we're using. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know where we got. I don't know how we got there, but
no,
great insight.
This is what we do here. This is what we do here. Yeah, feel free to go off on any tangent you want, man, because that's our bread and butter around here.
Yeah.
That's dope.
But
right on, man.
Yeah, so we were talking. I was talking about so as it applies to the tune or the story, we've got that theme. So now we're gonna start telling a story, right? There's our baseline. It's mom, but something's happening to mom. you know, there's a couple of choices I'm making here, and I'm debating on how musically technical I want to get, because I know it's not like a music theory channel or anything, but I'm in home base. I'm with mom. In music, we have scales, right? The major scale, and in the scale we have chords. You can only build 7 chords out of the major scale. That's all you got to work with. Each chord has a number, 1 through 7. I'll play them in order. And then we're back to 1. In the major scale, we have 3 major chords. The 1 chord, the first chord. The 4 chord, the 4th chord. The 5. We have 3 minor chords. The 2. The 3. The 6. And we have 1 diminished chord, the 7. That's all we got to work with. In Western society is used to this. Like, you know this. You know what I just told you. Maybe you hadn't heard it in those words. You know this like the back of your hand. Nobody needs to tell you that. You know it when you hear it. That means something to you. And if I played, you would be like, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
Because that
the
chord,
musician fucked up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That chord doesn't belong in that scale. It doesn't belong there. It's out of place. Yeah. That's out of place. Doesn't exist there. Okay. Well, mom doesn't belong in a hospital bed. This pain that she's in, it doesn't belong to her. This is wrong, right? We're experiencing something that should not be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's part of the emotional experience we're having, right? We love mom. That's home. We're safe. But something's happening to mom that should not be here. So what did I do there? This chord that I moved to, that chord does not exist in the key that I have been implying the whole time with mom.
Okay.
In this key that I'm implying, the next chord I play it doesn't belong in that key. Technically, what that's called is modal interchange. I'm borrowing a chord from a different key to place here instead. So in this key, the 4 would be a major chord. So here's the 1, here's the 4, here's the 1. What I've done is, instead of keeping the 4 chord major like it is in the major scale, I have decided to make the 4 chord a minor chord in the palette that I'm using. So this movement is, non-diatonic is the technical term, which means the 2 chords don't technically belong together in the same key.
Okay.
And it's this element of not belonging together. Yeah, diatonic means in the key, inside the key. Non-diatonic would be outside the key. So this element of not belonging is something I just honed in on with mom. Right? And that's the color I'm putting in here. I'm coloring that pleasant emotion of mom, right? That idea and memory of mom. I'm coloring that with something foreign. And it's only this note. It's 1 note that doesn't belong there. But that extra color, because of where it's placed in the scale, like it's a half step from scale degree 5, that does something to it. A lot of technical stuff, but basically I'm exploiting the tension that happens here, and that has that, you know, that real rub, you know, that rub. I'm exploiting that color and juxtaposing it against that really clean, triumphant major sound, and that's my token. That's the picture I'm using to try to get transcendent familiarity, or the corruption of transcendent familiarity, I guess, right? The decay of transcendent familiarity, something like that. That's the idea. I'm trying to use these elements to get that feeling across. Not even that idea, because it's not an idea I'm trying to get there. You know,
I love your use of the word color in describing this note being, you know, sort of infiltrating the rest of the key that you're using, because that at least puts it in a way that I can understand. You know, an artist has, you know, this painting in front of them that they're working on, and they're mostly using, you know, browns or something. It's just swirls of browns, and then all of a sudden there's a streak of yellow, or there's a streak of, you know, turquoise, and that color changes everything and sticks out. But also, like, whatever they're doing, it's working because of the use of the color, and for you to put it into those terms, like, really, that crystallizes it for me. You know, it's this extra little thing that you're or like when you're cooking and you just throw a particular spice that you normally wouldn't think of with a particular food, but in this case, you know, that's what makes it pop and makes it special, makes it unique.
Yeah, I mean, like an Instagram filter, right? It's the same picture, right? You can take a picture of mom, but what filter you put over it? Is it like a somber picture of mom? Is it a really silly picture of mom?
Yeah.
You know, just with a silly Instagram filter, let alone, like, you know, actual photographers and visual artists and videographers, and their palette consists of units of light that you allow into a computer. You know what I mean? Like, the physical materials change drastically, but that's what we're doing, right? Coloring a moment, I guess, right? I've heard it's a famous quote that I like a lot. You know, it's a little cliche in the community, but what can I say? I like it. That art is how we decorate space, and music is how we decorate time. And I really like that. I think that's smooth.
Art is how we decorate space.
Music is how we decorate time. And color is a good. You focused on the word color, and it's the right word. It's the right word. It's a different vibe. It's a different feeling. It's a different space. It's a different color. And depending on those extra notes, that's a different color. That's a really pleasant hue over the bass line. What if I did like... That's nice too. It's a little spicier though, right? Still clean though. What if I did something like... That's a different color now. Something bad's gonna happen here, right? You know, something mysterious, or I don't know, destabilized. We're destabilized here. It's a different color. The color I chose was here.
Yeah, in a Disney movie, that would be the villain, like, peeking out from behind the tree.
Yeah, something like that.
Like,
exactly.
all of a sudden in the background, something comes into view, and the audience, maybe the characters don't know, but the audience is like, oh no, something's about to happen. You know, that's the shift in that tone right there.
And there are these little like phrases that we use that mean certain things. Like, you recognize, like, oh, that sounds like the evil villain about to come up, because that flat two, the way it rubs against the one, means sort of bad guy in the Disney movie, because we've done this for bad guys in Disney movies a bunch of times. You know what I mean? Like, the meaning of the sound gets acquired as its use is proliferated, I guess. You know what I mean? It's a very natural.
Yeah, like
It's the
it
same way
becomes a
that
part of
language
pop
works.
culture, and therefore becomes. I was just gonna say, like every time there's a new word that becomes, status quo, they'll put it in the dictionary, and like now it's a
Hmm.
word because
Yeah,
everybody knows these sounds means this, like
exactly. Exactly.
wow.
So part of the craft of music and song, at least if you want people to listen to your music. I mean, there's people that they live to break every rule, but who's listening to them? I'm not listening to them. Uh, uh, I forgot what I was going to say. That as we learn these rules, we learn to exploit the expectations of the listener is what I'm trying to say. I know that when somebody hears, they're going to think a particular way. So maybe if I do that, I get them to think a particular way. Plus I add, and that sort of combines like a flat 2 rub that sounds like bad guy, but it also combines home bass of a major scale, but I'm not putting the rub right on that 1 because I want to leave home bass real clean for mom. So I'm going to put it up on the 5 so that mom has a little room to breathe, because I'm not a monster. You know what I mean? Like these are these are the things, right? You learn to exploit the expectations of the listener. It's just part of the game. And I know you guys do it. I know you writers do that, because Mr. Cliffhanger over here with the prologue.
Whoa.
I was trying to go to bed, but then his prologue is like, and okay, I guess I'm not going to bed then. Know what I mean?
Yeah, man, that's the idea, to get you to turn that damn
Yeah.
page and keep reading.
So you guys have your turn,
yeah, man.
your turns of phrase as writers, and we have ours as musicians as well. It's there.
And genres present you with these things to exploit, as you're talking about, because like, if everybody knows that this particular archetype of a character is usually the hero that wins the day at the end, well, if you're George Martin, you chop his head off right before the final chapter of the first book, and everybody's like, what?
Exactly. Now
you can exploit what everybody thinks
Exactly.
is true and just
Mhm.
flip it on its head and use it for nefarious purposes.
This Game of Thrones metaphor is perfect, right? Because there is, just as a case study of this idea of exploiting audience expectations, this is not the same thing as subverting audience expectations. I mean, that might be one aspect of what you do when you exploit the audience's expectations, sure. But like, there's a craft to that as well. I mean, right? When Martin chops off Ned's head, everybody's like, "Oh my God, this is crazy." When D&D do what they did to Danny, everybody's like, "You know what, guys? We're gonna have to go our separate ways." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, thank you for what you did.
That's a perfect
it's not working
example
anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. It's a completely different thing. You didn't exploit their expectations. You completely
your only goal was to just I know what the expectations is, so I'm not gonna do it. That's the game. Just because it's a thing, I'm not gonna do it. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not what I'm talking about when I say exploiting expectations, right? It's just part of the palette. I mean, as artists, what is our real the real material that we're manipulating and crafting into an experience, right? It's not the sounds I'm using. It's not the pen you're writing with. It's the human person. It's the person's emotional core, their soul.
What
this
you're
is the thing. Yeah, this is
communicating.
Yeah, I mean, what you're communicating could it could be anything. And it could be nothing, because sometimes music communicates literally nothing. I mean, as far as like instrumental music has no propositional content is what I mean by that. But it's the material that it's applying, right? The clay, like if a sculptor has clay and he's molding the clay into something, it's not really the clay that he's molding. It's the person that walks by the clay. That's the thing he's molding, right? The clay doesn't experience anything as he's molding it. The clay, that's nothing. And the clay is irrelevant. He could do it with something else. The thing that's really being formed or transformed is your audience, is the experiencer of your art. You know what I mean? That's the real material. I think that's one of the things that connects artists so well, and one of the things we understand about each other, I think, is that we're going for more than the thing in front of us, right? The piano is, I mean, I love the piano. I love it. But it is not the thing I'm really, really interested in. It's not the piano. It's not the keys. It's not the mechanics of this thing. It's not this physical object. What I'm really interested in is the whatever it is that it is facilitating between me and you. You know what I mean? That's really what we're after.
This emotional connection that you're having tangentially with a perfect stranger on the street that you never actually see. You're creating an emotional connection without sight, without meeting each other or shaking hands, from you creating a thing and them experiencing that thing. Yeah. Now the two of you are connected.
How many people?
Oh man, dude, you just blew my fucking mind with that. Are you fucking kidding me?
I mean, how many people how many people do you know that can say with all seriousness that some piece of art saved their life? That a song saved my life, that a book saved my life, that a painting changed me, that, I mean...
You hear that all the time.
All the time.
Wow, man. Like, I've never thought of it that way, though. To like create a thing, this book that I'm writing, for example, to create it and pour all of me into it, and then put it out there in the world, and somebody reads it, and now I and them are connected. Like that.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah, it's
I
beautiful.
Wish this was like whiskey right now. Let's do this.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's powerful, and I mean, I think that if you accept what I'm saying, I mean, I think that places the artist in a position of responsibility. You know what I mean?
Now I have a question. We here are taking a piece that someone else wrote, a piece of art that someone else created, an emotional connection that they have formed with you, and now you are adding to that with your own. When we finish this, you are going to lay down this track and send it to me, put over the audio that I sent you. Yeah. And then I'm going to go ahead and create visuals and create a video to house this thing and add my contribution. And by the time this is done, we'll have 3 different artists who will have collaborated on this one emotional piece of artwork. What are your thoughts on that aspect of it?
Yeah, I mean, collaboration might be the most fun thing about music, at least to me. The most satisfying musical experience I have is sharing it with other people, not just the audience on stage, but the fellow musicians. I'm in love with jazz, and the whole purpose of it is spontaneous musical communication with another spontaneous musical communicator. That's the goal of jazz, and it is just addicting to even get close to being able to trade musical ideas in real time, in the moment. Just even getting close to that is one of life's greatest thrills that I wish I could have everybody experience without having to go through, a decade of musical training. Because it is just thrilling and addicting, and it just one of the greatest things.
It's crazy because jazz is one of those things that I, with my limited understanding of music, I know that I can't fully understand what's going on with it, but I have played in bands, and I do know
Yeah.
the relationship between musicians and
Hmm.
how the closer you get, the better you play together and everything. And it's very interesting to me how a jazz band can go up and begin something with a particular rhythm and take it on this crazy journey and communicate to each other without ever speaking a word, and know when to switch things up and when not,
Hmm.
and when to end it. The fact that they end the song blows my mind, because like if you've never played this before and you're not speaking to each other, you are communicating solely with the music itself, and
Yeah.
that just
Yeah.
so
It blows my mind
to
too. I've been chasing that high for 30 years. You know what I mean? It
now
never stops being
I
mind
was a
blowing.
very amateur guitarist. Even when I played in bands, like we would sometimes write songs together, but for the most part, one of us would write a song and teach it to everybody else, and then we would take it from there. But I've never been able to like show up at a campfire, for example, and pull out my guitar and start jamming with somebody else who has their guitar
Hmm.
or a pair of bongos or whatever. I've never been able to just jam with other musicians because I don't know it like that. It's not a part of me like that. And
Yeah.
maybe I can get there someday but that's a dream of mine, to be able to do that, to be able to walk into a room of people that
Hmm.
I don't know and see that someone else is a musician and bust out my guitar and start playing with them without ever having played with them before.
It's
So
it
that is
bypasses
that is my
all the
dream. And then there's
crap.
jazz.
You know,
you know
like
yeah, yeah,
it's the only way I make friends. Because if people have to talk to me for too long, they realize they don't want to be my friend anymore. But if we just play some music together, they're like, "Hey, this guy's cool," and then I can like rope them in before they realize, like, "Oh man, he got me. I'm his friend now." You know what I mean? Uh, point being that
now
the
I'm stuck with this dude.
exactly that the connection bypasses the differences you have with a person. Like they're irrelevant. They're irrelevant when we're just playing some music here. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're just sharing some art. We're
And
sharing
it's interesting
ideas
because
together in a
you and I
it's
have rolled. No, I'm sorry. Finish your thought. Finish your thought.
I think I was done. Yeah, just
Okay,
the
sorry.
communication.
The lag made me talk over you. I was just gonna say that you and I we've rolled jujitsu together. We've trained together, and that's another one where you kind of get into this groove, especially when you are partners for a while and you've practiced for a while. You get
Hmm.
into this sort of like groove with it, where you can kind of freestyle. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And
Yeah.
go
And
on the sort of like storybook journey with this act that you're doing, in this case rolling jujitsu, until
exactly.
you inevitably put your knee on my belly and then choke me out.
Well, I was abusing you a little bit. You were new, and I was training for a little while already, so I was
Yeah,
I was boosting my
you were
ego,
really kicking my ass.
smashing the new guy. Sorry, you're not supposed to do that in jiu-jitsu, but what can I say? Uh,
That's all right. Keep
but
it
yeah,
playful, keep it real.
the and high level jujitsu practitioners talk about jujitsu as a language when they reach a certain point,
Mm,
that at some point it becomes conversational. This is what I'm talking about. This thing
mm,
is universal. We're talking
mm,
about it in jazz and music, but according to Henner and Hidon Gracie, this is exactly what happens at the highest echelons of jiu-jitsu as well. When they roll together, they're having a conversation with each other. There's a set of techniques.
mm.
There's a finite set of techniques. People create their own variations and their own techniques, but there's a fundamental core that doesn't really change. And when Hidon and
Yeah,
Henner roll, they're communicating with each other. Like when Henner throws up, a helicopter armbar, you don't think he's like insulting Hedon, like he's active, like trying to like take a jab at him. You know what I mean? When he does,
yeah,
when they're doing like fancy stuff to each other or something, or Hedon tries to, Hedon submits Henner with Henner's own move or something like that. You know what I mean? You don't think that's conversation? That's definitely conversation. You know, counters and counters to counters. There's a whole chain of logic, of call and response, of action and reaction. If that's not
yeah.
language, I don't know what is. You know what I mean? And it's the
I've
same in music.
I've watched a few. I've experienced a few UFC fights where they'll interview the fighters afterwards, and the fighter will explain that at a certain part of the fight, the other one was saying this and this and this to him. And it's funny because you take that literally, like he's speaking, like maybe they're grappling, and the idea that I'm getting from what he's saying is that the dude is talking trash in his ear. But then you watch the playback and his mouth is not moving. And you're like, he didn't actually speak any words.
Mm-hmm.
What this fighter is telling me is that with their fight, this dude was communicating to him. So much so that he heard it, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like he can speak on it as though this dude said this.
Exactly. Because when jazz musicians, when somebody throws me a lick, like, when somebody quotes whoever, he quotes Charlie Parker at me or quotes the lick at me and I quote it right back at them. Yeah, we're sharing a sort of inside thing that we are communicating in a way other people outside of this thing don't really understand. It's the same way with all arts, right? When you talk to your writers, I'm sure you guys talk about structure or story, this or whatever the technical terms are.
Yeah,
we would know, and
sure.
you would even see it in a story. You wouldn't have to be talking about it with an author. You would just be reading a novel, and you will just recognize certain techniques, and you will judge whether they've been done well or not because of your own expertise, right? Same sort of thing. And with fighting, all the more so. I mean, fighters know what they're showing each other when they're feinting, when they're setting it, when they're throwing body shots to set up the headshot. Like that's all language, and people know it. And it's a whole language. It's all language, man. It's all language. We're all communicating. We're all just talking to each other. That's all we're trying to do. We're trying to be seen, right? We're trying to be seen by someone.
Yeah.
Trying to connect with someone.
Seen and heard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Seen, heard, and felt.
Exactly.
The three things everybody wants to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure, dude. So bringing that back then to this piece, you set up the motif for Mom. You've introduced the elements that are sort of corrupting to her health, and therefore the emotional core of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually the story moves into the reading of her memoir.
Mm-hmm.
And these stories of her being a little girl that sound very much like the daughter who was talking about those things as she was a little girl. There's a rhyme inside the story from Mom's childhood and her daughter's childhood.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that hit you? Like, can you talk a little bit about that in the music?
Yeah, sure. So once the emotional core has been established, I guess, the stories has a very clear emotional picture that it's painting. Once we've narrowed that down, I mean, that is the tune, right? Just like the opening lines of the story are the story. Well, they aren't the story, but they tell you what you're going to feel here, essentially.
They set the tone. They set
right.
They set the mood.
Right. The other stuff, the details, are less important. I'll say not important. Not that they're not important, but they are subservient, or to the big picture, to the big idea. So from there, what I'm really trying to do is start to create movement, to feel like we've gone away from the main point, right? Basically, it's just like I'm at home and I've left home, and now I'm home again, and now I've left home, and now I'm home and I've left, So I will use more chords, right? That's one way of creating more emotion. The central idea is really just hovering in the one chord, on the one chord. Even though we got that little color in there. So now for the rest of it, after the beginning of the story and the emotional scene has been set, she starts reading the story of Mom's life, and there's a lot more detail, and now we got to learn some details. So there's more motion, there's more detail. I'm going to use more chords now. I'm going to keep them all diatonic. I'm going to keep them all in the key, because I want to reserve color non-diatonic color, right? I want to reserve that for the punches that I've assigned, right? About mom, you know, the little the sting of it. I want to leave it there. So the rest of the course, I'm going to try to stay pretty diatonic, and sweet, you know, because now we're reminiscing about mom. So even though we're in a sad moment, like I could have created motion, really dramatic motion. You know, and gone really minor with it, or really dense. But that didn't feel right. Just didn't feel right. So I did want to create some minor movement. I want darker shades here. It's not like it's all happy, but I do want it sweet. So I'm moving to the relative minor of the major key that I'm in. I am going a little darker, but the color that I'm using is softer color. You know? So I'm in the same minor sound. The way I'm choosing to color it is sweeter. Rather than coloring it more harshly. Do you hear the difference? I know I'm using, soft versus hard, but
it makes sense because you have like this, almost, well, like you said, this darker sort of feel for what's happening, but like you keep saying, mom is still mom, so she's that sweetness that just like makes everything okay.
A bitter sweetness, right? Yeah,
exactly. Mm-hmm. So like even though you're in it right now, you have this sort of lifeline in these little sweet notes that you've sort of peppered through.
Exactly.
To hold on to this like glimmer of hope. It's beautiful.
Yeah, acknowledging the reality of the sadness that we're in, but you can't help but think fondly of mom. You know what I mean? And here I just want to add more chords, but I want to keep the weight. Like my heart is sinking here, right? Like we're starting to tell more stories and we're thinking of nice things, but when tragedy happens, this is one of the things. Like you think of these beautiful moments with your loved one that are elevating you at the same time that your whole being is realizing that you're not, and your heart is sinking. So I want the feeling of elevation, the loftiness of the memory of your loved one, but the downward pull of the pit of your stomach. So how am I doing this? Well, I've established the minor color that I want. And I'm literally now going to move down the piano towards the lower, heavier tones. And that's going to start to stretch out. So the focus of my orchestration has been pretty tight so far. The grouping is real time. My hands are close together. It's in the same sort of area. Now I'm spreading out. I'm climbing and the bass is moving down. Now it's really full here, right? But sweet still. Heavier. And this is like the lowest point we'll be at. And I'm just pivoting here. There's the heaviest point we're going to be at. But I'm trying to hold it together. Let's calm down. Let's get back home. You know what I mean? I move to the minor. Right? Repeat that. The story's going on a little bit. Just heaviness, right? Heaviness, lowness. But life goes on. I have How am I going to do it? I don't know, but I have to. So that's the idea. I was just looking to create movement in that space because there's a lot of details happening in the story, and I wanted to stay diatonic to reserve the foreignness to the transcendent familiarity that is mom, and I kept the sweetness. Part of the way I kept the sweetness is actually that the chords that I'm using, the mom chord is inside of those chords. Like they use the same notes. So like the mom chord is the home and it uses the scale degrees 1 through 5. When I move, then I start to get sweeter here in the lower end. The mom chord is literally there. What I'm adding is gravity in the bottom that changes the chord. So it's a different chord using certain colors that allow me to keep the mom chord front and center. You know what I mean? So she's still here with me. That's the idea. So there's a lot of like overlap in the notes that I'm using, because that's one chord that I go to after the minor parts. I'm literally changing one note. Here's the mom chord.
Very much recreating your.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say you're very much recreating the idea of the story where mom, even though she's gone, she's still with us. So like this idea of like even in this other piece of music, she's still in there. You know, like
exactly.
She's still a part of it.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it.
That's beautiful, man. I wanted to take a quick pause for a second. Stephanie Bacchus, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing your name. I don't know if it's Bacchus or Bacchus.
Oh, hey, Stephanie.
But it's your story that we're scoring today, and she's here. She's in the chat. So, like, welcome to her. Congratulations on your win.
Beautiful story.
She says, yeah, absolutely. And she said that she always thought of writing as cinematic, and she loves that music can match that. She thought that the story was late. It wasn't. It was on time. And what else? Okay, I just wanted to give her a shout out because she showed up. She's in the chat, so like, hey.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story, and
so
we've been chatting it up.
So this idea that like,
yeah, so I've kept the mom chord because the mom chord, it's in a particular shape too. It's because you can have chords in different shapes, different inversions. It's specifically a second inversion major triad. That's the mom chord. So here it is. When it's complete, it's there. When we started going into the more movement part, I'm literally just adding one note. Like I'm going to keep the mom chord in the right hand, and I'm not going to change it. I'm just going to change the one note I'm adding to create the syncing movement to change what chord, but I'm going to keep the mom chord on top, and that will be the color of whatever chord I'm on. So we start home, then we go to that minor, but the mom chord is still intact. Here I finally change it, but I got most of the mom chord in there. And then we're back home. You know, that was the idea anyway.
Beautiful.
Thanks, man. And that's pretty much most of it. At the point, the only thing I tried to aim for besides those two things, and you know, I'm improvising some of the details. Like I have like an overall structure that I've decided on. Basically, the mom chord and the color of it are the most like locked in details that I worried about, because that's the emotional core that we were talking about, right? So from there, it's easier for me to say, okay, so I need some sweetness here, emphasizing the mom chord. I'm going to create movement in the diatonic space. And then from there, we'll head home, right? the only other thing I tried to aim for was the moment where I think she said mom was gone, the definitive mom was gone point. I was aiming to land in the mom chord close to the color part, and then like not move from the color part and start coloring it much more harshly, much more darkly, like but sprinkling, not really dense, but like lots of really just crunchy dark, like your chest is caving in on itself, that kind of color, but have it like spacey and sprinkly, as if you're like trying to hold on to the hope of mom, because the mom chord, the way that we give it motion is with that little motif. So what the idea is, when we get to the color of the moment mom is gone, we're trying to hold on to her memory, but we're in this space that should not be, like we were talking about. So the idea is to keep that, instead of keep it more like, like the texture of it is sort of the same, that I'm retaining elements of mom's memory, but like the thing that should not be is just cracking through, before we resolve it or whatever it is. So that was the other big emotional musical moment I was aiming for. So that home base of the key emotional crux, which we talked about as a sort of transcendent familiarity that is being corrupted before your very eyes. That's the big idea. That's the big emotional idea that I resonated with or identified in the story. Then I needed moments of motion, and I wanted the what the story felt like to me in those moments of detail was a sweet reminiscing, despite the bitterness of the situation. So that's why I aimed for rich, bittersweet sort of colors. And then the moment of mom's passing, the mom's motif sort of starts to fracture and like slip through your fingers, and what you're left with is sort of the crunchiness and the resoundingness of the thing that should not be, before we find mom's note that pieces us back together, even though she's gone. And this time, this time I did not use the non-diatonic color. This time, I stayed in the diatonic space, and I am free to delight in mom's memory, free from the pain that she has been in. So instead of her memory being tinged by that pain, we can just rest back and just delight in her memory now. That was the feeling I was going for, and the way I tried to communicate that in music was to now resolve diatonically and leave and not color it in the way that we were coloring it before we went through the dark period, I guess.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Beautiful, man. It's so intense, because you really are, like, I mean, obviously it goes without saying that today's episode is about storytelling through music, so it makes absolute sense that this is the conclusion that we would come to. But you're telling the story through the music, like the idea that her mom's theme sort of like breaks apart, and all you're left with is, the darkness that had, crept in throughout the
Mm-hmm.
song. And then for her to like come back, that was another reason why I picked this piece, is because even though mom dies, the piece ends with this sort of like uplifting moment, of this hopeful moment of, oh no, mom is still with me.
Yeah.
And for the music to reflect that, with her sound going away and then for it to come back, uh, and to be free of the darkness that was there before. That's beautiful, man. That's what this whole thing was about, man. That's outstanding.
Thanks, man.
I love it.
It was just very clear to me from the story. It was just well written. At least that's the experience I had with the story. Like it impacted me in that way, and just trying to reflect my experience in sound, right? And you mentioned like telling the story. So what you're doing is telling the story of the story with music. Yeah, exactly. But the emotional story, I'm trying to pay so much attention to the details of her story that the emotion of it washes over me, and then I can ignore all the details of the story and just be crushed by the emotional experience. That's really the focus. That's really I'm telling the story of the emotional experience, really, right?
Yeah.
And you could tell it in different words. This, delightful, airy theme with a with some darkness, with some color. It's not. It's heavy. It's entangled. It's not as it should be. Why is that? Well, let me tell you a story about her life, kind of thing. The theme evolves. The triad is intact. It moves around, but it's centered on that theme. But the it couldn't stay together, right? Though darkness crumbled it in some fashion, you know. Only it didn't. I thought it did, but it didn't, right? Not only did it not crush it, what we've been through is new. It's transformed. It's renewed. It's whole again. It's whole again, I guess, is the way the music feels, right? Versus, it's the same piece. It's just colored differently. Hope you guys are enjoying that. Looks like we lost our host here.
Hey,
He's back. There he is.
forgive me. That
No
was
worries.
weird.
No worries.
So, dude, we've made it through the whole thing here. I feel like we've explored all the different facets of it. We have a lot more people in the chat now than when we started out. So I think that we should close out with you playing it through one more time, with the story. And then I'll remind everybody that even if there is some lag on this stream, you can look forward to the finished piece being put together in a video within the next couple of weeks. I still have to add my parts to it once Adrian lays down his tracks. So, dude, this has been amazing. Let's play through it one more time, and then we'll touch back in with the chat real quick before we head on out. But this has been way better than I even thought it was gonna be. This is great. Way to go.
Thanks, man. It's been a lot of fun. Let's do it. Hope you guys enjoy.
Excited. Let's do it one more time. Here we go.
Miss Louise, it's time. I looked up from my book at my mother's nurse. Thanks, Genevieve. I want to thank you for your support. You mean so much to her. Genevieve nodded at me, and I walked into the room. Dust danced in the air as sunbeams shone through my mother's window. "Oh, Mom, I'm not ready," I whispered as I made my way to her bed. I sat down and opened the book to read to her. It was the memoir she wrote after she got sick, so her memories could live on. When I was 7, I started school. I hated that place, I started to read. I was a freckled redhead. My mama did my hair in 2 braids every day. The boys would grab the braids in class. They would try to count my freckles out loud, but they must have been pretty dumb because no one could count that many freckles. I was the only girl in my class, which included 7, 8, and 9-year-olds. I remember the first time my teacher told me to read in front of class. I was terrified. I didn't want to speak in front of class, but back then, if you were a girl and you were in school, you were learning to be a teacher or a mom. And I was too much of a tomboy for the teachers to think I was ever getting married or having kids. By 3rd grade, I was helping the teacher pass out papers and clean the blackboard. She obviously thought I was going to teach. So imagine my former teacher's surprise when she was dying 30 years later and found me, still freckled and still a redhead, as her nurse. As she laid in her hospital bed, I showed her pictures of me, and she said she was sorry for her assumptions. A tear rolled down my cheek as I read the passage. She had never really talked about the early days of her life. Once her parents divorced, her mother moved her to the city. That's where she met my father. He died when I was 14. I didn't think I would survive his death. I really don't think I'll survive her death either. Mom opened her eyes and looked at me. She usually looked through me these days. She almost never remembers who I am, but this time I could tell she knew exactly who was sitting with her. I touched her hand. It was so soft, just like when I was a little girl. She squeezed lightly, and I leaned down and put my cheek on her hand. Tears dropped on her blanket. "Mom, what am I going to do without you? How am I going to walk down the aisle without you? How am I going to have kids without you to be there for them? How am I going to teach them about you?" I looked up at the monitors next to her bed. It wouldn't be long now. "I love you so much, Mom. I don't know how I'm going to go on without you, but I know Dad is waiting for you. I know he's ready to see you again. When you're ready to go, it's okay. I don't want you to be in pain anymore." I felt her chest rise and fall as I leaned over to hug her one last time. An alarm sounded. Genevieve turned off the machine. Mom was gone. I dropped her memoir in grief, and a piece of paper fell out. I had flipped through the pages of this book 200 times. I don't know how I didn't see it before.
Sorry, I don't know why it's not playing anymore.
I lost my cues, but
Yeah, sorry.
you got through most of it.
Let's see. I think it might kick back up in a second here. I think my Wi-Fi is just starting to
You're going to be
spasm.
okay.
Here we
I
go.
will always be here for you, whispering in your ear as you walk down the aisle to marry the man of your dreams, telling you to push harder when you're having your kids. And I know you'll read them this book to tell them all about me. I'll always be here. Until we meet again, Mom. As I read the note, I could feel her spirit in the room. The sun shone a bit brighter. The smell of her perfume washed over me. She was already by my side, telling me that I would be okay.
My brother, I love you, dude. Thank you for being on my show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for
whoa.
having me. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, man.
This was great.
You guys are great. Stephanie, wonderful, wonderful piece. It was a lot of fun to dig into it and suffer the experience to write about it. It was lovely. Thanks for having me, guys.
I want to go ahead and throw a little challenge into the chat. Go ahead and leave a comment on this video. So not in the chat, but on the actual video. Drop a comment with the music piece from a movie or TV show that always wrecks you. The one that whenever you hear it, you're taken right back to the first time you saw that happen, and you're just a mess. I want to know everybody's. I know everybody has one, and I'm going to. I don't know how I want to do it. I have a prize to like hand out, but I don't know how to pick the winner. I don't want it to just be like a lottery because it doesn't feel right. So I'll do okay. So here's how I'll choose the winner. The one whose musical choice, the one who picks the piece that also is one that resonates with me. It doesn't have to be like my one, but if it's one that I can be like, oh yeah, that one gets me too, you win. And what you will win is a 7-day free trial of masterclass.com. I'm a member on there, and every like year or so they give you 3 7-day free trials to hand out to people. So somebody is going to win one in the comments, whether it's somebody who's here in the chat or somebody who watches this on the replay. I'm going to give you guys like a week to comment on this video, and I will pick the one who wins, and I will announce it that way, probably on the next Livestream Sunday. Stephanie, congratulations. Your story is amazing. Thank you for showing up. You did a great job. Adrian did a great job. Now it's up to me to drop the ball when I go in and add my visuals. But we're gonna create a whole little video out of this thing, and the finished product will be up on the channel within the next couple of weeks. Stay tuned to either my Instagram or this channel to find out when that shows up. Adrian, any parting words for everybody in the chat and everybody on the replay? Anything you want to say? Anything you want to plug as well? Fire away.
Just, I had a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. Hope we do it some more. I don't really have anything to plug. I'm not trying to sell you guys. It was just nice to be here. Nice to be a part of the group. Take good care of this guy. Books by Adrian.
Oh yeah, the merch. Yeah, is that the one with the one on the back? Let me see the back. I think it has a. Oh yeah, don't break your stuff. Yeah, dude. If you guys want this shirt, which is super cool, it's exclusive to just Patreon members. So go over to my Patreon and sign up. That's awesome, dude. You just helped me sell my Patreon. Well done.
Bravo.
Stephanie says this was beautiful. It made me cry, and I wrote it.
It made me cry too. It was beautiful. Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Thank you guys so much. We're going to go ahead and sign off. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Leave your comment down below with your entry for the contest. What is that song from that show or movie that just emotionally wrecks you every time you hear it? And come back for Livestream Sunday next week. We're going to be talking to Lori. I'm going to butcher her last name. I believe it's Oksnowski. All about male writers writing female point of view characters and vice versa, and should get interesting.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Come back for that. Thank you guys again, and we are out.